pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of The Cinematic Traveler. I am your intrepid movie exploring host, Chris, and on this episode, I am going to be bringing you my review for the latest Stephen King story to be adapted to the big screen, and this one is entitled The Long Walk, directed by Francis Lawrence. Now, as we all know, Stephen King adaptations are very hit and miss. You can have something as great as The Shining or Misery, and something a little more forgettable like Graveyard Shift. Not that I'm dissing Graveyard Shift. It has some moments. But it is on the lower spectrum. So where does The Long Walk fall in this spectrum? Well, you're going to have to listen to find out. See how I set that up? Aren't I clever? Oh, at any rate, before we get into everything, let me go ahead and get the podcaster, YouTuber, mumbo jumbo out of the way. You know exactly what I'm going to say. I don't know why I do this every week, but whatever you're listening or watching the show on, if you could please follow, subscribe, like whatever it is, leave comments, follow me on my social media, Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod. Get in touch with me through my email address, thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com, or leave, like I said, comments and all that fun stuff. Let me know you're out there. Share the show with your friends, family, loved ones, clowns hiding in gutters. I'm promising that you will float wherever you need to go. I don't care as long as I get some more listeners. Please, somebody help me out. There, I got through that quick, fast, and in a hurry. I hope all of my beloved listeners out there are doing well. Oh, 2025, it feels like the long walk, and that at any moment, something bad's going to happen. We'll get to some stuff later, but I hope you're doing well out there. I hope you're safe, and hopefully I can give you a little bit of a diversion talking about movies. So let's go ahead and dive into The Long Walk.
Yeah, it's going to be fun on the bun.
Now, before I get into things, I do have to over-explain things, as always. I am going to give you a spoiler-free review as well as a spoiler-free plot synopsis. Now, in that plot synopsis, I have hidden a movie quote from a movie that either shares some DNA with this film or maybe runs parallel to it. If you can identify that movie quote, get in touch with me through the various means that I've already mentioned. Like I said, Instagram at Cinematic Traveler Pod, email address thecinematictravelerpod@gmail.com, or in the comment section, I will find it. If it's right, I'll give you a point. At the end of the month, I add up all the points, and whoever wins gets to select a movie for me to review next month. Oh my God, how exciting is that? How exciting is that? That is better than a long, torturous walk that could end in your demise. Although, probably only slightly better. Oh, you know I'm already on fire this episode. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the plot synopsis. I will let you know, I try to write these out, maybe have a little script for you. However, this movie has a bare bones plot. So I might not be as clever and as witty as I usually am. Oh, I hear you now. You are not clever and witty on ones that you write out. And you would be wrong. You are wrong. Oh, who the hell am I talking to in this empty room? Oh, my life is so sad. Okay. The Long Walk. All right. In this fictionalized United States of America, we are some years after a civil war that has been finally ended. However, it has caused some economic turmoil within the United States, which has led to the creation of this televised event called The Long Walk, in which one young man from each state, so 50 young men, are quote-unquote volunteered to participate. And basically, the last person standing gets a big financial prize, as well as they get a wish, something they want other than money. This is really where we meet our heroes of the story, at least our first two. Raymond Garrity, played by Cooper Hoffman, and Peter McVeers, played by David Johnson. And these are the main two that we follow throughout the film. At the very beginning, we meet the head of this long walk, the Major, played by Mark Hamill himself, who gives a rousing speech to these young men, explaining the rules, which are basically this. They have to keep a pace of 3 miles an hour and stay on the path that has been assigned to this event. Now, there is a warning system set up if they either stray from the path or fall below the 3 mile per hour mark. They get 3 warnings, and then the 4th time, well, let's just say their membership to this gym will end abruptly. Now, before the major starts the long walk, he tells them something like, "May the odds be ever in your favor." Hint, hint. He fires his gun in the air, and off we go on this long journey of some 300 miles to see who will be the last man standing. And that really is the plot of this movie, and I can't add much more to it. Will our heroes be able to survive? Well, I'm not going to give that away, but I will give you the best review for The Long Walk in all the podcaster YouTuber universe. Well, I'll give you a review for The Long Walk. So let's go ahead and move into that. I do have to tell you, I remember The Long Walk and reading it. I think it was in a series of, was it Richard Bachman? Was that his pseudonym that he wrote other stories in? I remember reading The Long Walk when I was younger. It was a long time ago, so it was testing my memory. But I really had no memory of it other than that the contest was this long, grueling walk. But it's really hard to kind of separate Stephen King stuff. Here's a question for you that you can answer in comments and whatever. Have you all gone through your Stephen King phase? I feel like as an American, at least, we all go through our Stephen King phase. Usually it's kind of that early teenage years or into high school where you start reading his books and then you realize that he is an amazing writer who used way too much cocaine and could never, ever finish a story properly. It had some weird shit that you would be like, oh my God, how can anybody write stuff like that? But yeah, I feel like everybody goes through their Stephen King phase. So that's why all of it gets jumbled up, especially during his cocaine years. He was putting out some books. I mean, every time you turn around, there was another Stephen King book. Now, as I mentioned, this is directed by Francis Lawrence, who you might not be familiar with, but he did direct another series of something quite similar to this, and it seems apropos that he would be the director of this because he was the director in the Hunger Games movie series. And this movie and Hunger Games, they kind of share that DNA, as I mentioned earlier. So I hear you. What make you of The Long Walk, Chris? Well, let's talk about the positives of this movie.
Sounds pleasant.
And I'm going to start with the acting because I think this is the most important part of this movie since it does have such a paper-thin plot. I mean, you're basically just following these characters as they walk along this road. And if they stumble and fall, well, let's just say the asphalt is the least of their problems. And our two main leads, Raymond, played by Cooper Hoffman, and Peter, played by David Johnson, they put in excellent performances. I'm going to say top to bottom, I think the whole cast is really excellent in this movie. And they have to be, because they're the ones you have to connect with and enjoy their performance and get drawn into the movie, or else you're going to get really bored with this film because basically, like I said, they're just walking down this road and things happen that I'm not going to give away because obviously the crowd has to be thinned out in various gruesome, horrible ways. But at the same time, if you didn't care about these characters or weren't invested in them, then yeah, you're just going to get bored out of your mind. And thankfully, as I mentioned, the whole cast, but especially our two main leads, they do a great job. Cooper as Raymond, he's sort of the main focus in the movie that we start out with, and he really kind of pulls you into the film. He has a slightly ulterior motive for trying to win this contest, which you learn as we progress through the movie, but he's also a very sincere, friendly, likable guy. That's what draws Peter, played by David Johnson, into this friendship that turns into basically a brotherhood between these two young men as they struggle to make it to the end of this quote-unquote race. And whereas Raymond is sort of the pessimist or the cynic, Peter is the optimist, and he's looking for the beauty in the world and he wants to help people, and that's why he's trying to win. So again, you get sort of these opposites that come together and they really form this tight friendship that you buy into. And as much as I liked Cooper Hoffman as Raymond, David Johnson, who played, I can't remember the android's name in Alien Romulus, but he was kind of the star. It wasn't David, no. What the hell was his name in that movie? Anyway, he played that character in Alien Romulus that was kind of stood out. Well, he stands out here again. I'm really curious to see where both of these lead actors, where their careers go, because they have a lot of charisma, a lot of chemistry between the two of them. And then David Johnson, he kind of is the life of the party, as it were, through this really dreadful movie that we will get to later. But David really has that spark on the screen to where you can see why these other characters were like him. And like I said, you can see and buy into the bond between Peter and Raymond. There are other actors throughout the movie. Like I said, I can name them all, but I think everybody in the story does their part very well. You have, in this diverse group of young men, you've got smaller, quote unquote, weaker looking guys, and you have big, strong guys. And then you have friendly ones, and then you have ones that maybe you don't like so much. But in a credit to the movie that I guess I'm just going to throw this into a positive while we're talking about the characters, is that even the ones you don't like at the beginning, there's a point in the movie where you will feel some sympathy or some empathy for what they are going through, especially if they're meeting their demise. So I think all of the actors, these young actors, really put in some great performances. Of course, you got Mark Hamill. He's a bit one note. He's just the bad guy, and he's doing his typical Mark Hamill bad guy voice. Mark Hamill is a great voice actor, but he always has kind of the same tone when he plays the evil bad guy in whatever he's doing. But yeah, it's always cool to see Mark Hamill. If there's one positive that I can say about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, is that it seems Mark Hamill's kind of getting more roles than he was before that came out. And one other member of the cast, that would be Raymond's mother, played by Judy Greer. She doesn't have a big part, but Judy Greer is awesome in everything. So again, top to bottom, I think the cast does an excellent job for this movie and what it is. And they needed to, because as I mentioned, if you're not buying into the characters or you're not getting emotionally invested, then this movie's not going to do anything for you. That's where my next credit will be to the filmmakers. We'll say Francis Lawrence as the director. This was a difficult shoot. It had to be a difficult shoot, because not so much in the challenge of, filming everything, but just what do you do with a movie where these guys are just walking basically in a straight line through the whole movie. One of the things that he does that I like a lot was that he keeps a lot of focus on either 2 or 3 characters in frame, but he does a really neat trick with the sound design where if someone that isn't in frame is talking, it's like you were there, because they might be muffled because they're a little further away, or, they're further back, so they're a little quieter. And there's always this warning signal that is given out when someone starts dropping off or gets slower. So you could have 2 characters having a conversation that you are invested in, and then it'll just be quiet in the background. You hear warning to contestant, whatever. And that just is unnerving, because it reminds you of what's going on and what they are. Because it might be a funny scene or some kind of deep emotional scene, but then it's like, oh, hey, by the way, somebody's getting killed over here, or something bad's going to happen. And I think visually it does what it needs to do in this movie. There are some nice shots of, the country they're walking through, and the nighttime and rain and all that stuff. But ultimately, there's only so much you can do visually with this. And I think Francis Lawrence brings enough little creative things throughout the movie to keep you interested in the movie. Plus, again, I don't know if it was him, the casting director, whoever found this cast. I mean, A+, they deserve an Oscar for this, because as I mentioned, those characters are the reason that you watch this movie. I guess that ties to the writing or the adaptation of the story. This one is by J.T. Malner, and we're going to give him credit, because he does make these characters likable, or even if they're unlikable, you can have some empathy for them. And I know I'm repeating myself, but, making characters with character arcs and they're likable, or, even despicable, but, they have their moments. In this type of movie, really every type of movie, it should be this way, but especially in this type of movie, because these actors and these performances and this dialogue is carrying the movie more than anything visually on the screen. My next positive for this movie, and this is one of my favorite positives, this one comes in under 2 hours. It's about an hour and 50 minutes. doesn't drag. You never get bored with it, and it doesn't really waste a lot of your time with the setup. You pretty much are joining Raymond on the first day, like when he's getting driven there by his mom to start, and then they get the brief explanation, and off we go into this movie. So again, you never get bored, and just the balance between the gruesome deaths and stuff, as well as the quieter moments, the character moments, really keep you interested in this film all the way till the end. And I think I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to kind of have my last positive and my first negative run together here, because this movie, on a positive side, it is bleak. It is a dark movie, and it never ever lets up from that. It's an emotional ride, because as I mentioned, these actors are giving excellent performances and you're really buying into them. So when things happen to them, you feel it. And there are kills in this movie that are, oh boy, they're tough to watch, especially, yeah, like I said, if it's one of your favorite characters in the movie. And oh my God, well, yeah, there were some times in this one I had to look away, and I felt some genuine emotion, which I try to push all of that down until eventually my heart will explode from everything I've stuffed down in there. But yeah, this is a very bleak movie, putting it mildly. I enjoyed that because I enjoyed that it stuck to its guns. So that is a positive for me. Having said that, let's go ahead and slide into the negatives for The Long Walk.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
And we'll start off with the fact that this is a bleak, sad movie. And if you're someone that doesn't like those type of movies, you're not going to enjoy this movie. As I mentioned, this film never lets you forget what's going on to these characters in this world. So you know in the back of your head, as you get attached to characters, that there's a chance that this one's not going to win and that one's not going to win. Something bad's going to happen. So it really makes you struggle with trying to remain an upbeat audience member. And there are moments in this movie of levity. And like I said, there's some bonding between these characters and stuff where you're laughing and enjoying the conversations with these characters, only to be reminded that, oh yeah, by the way, all but one of them are going to die. So yeah, I'll put that in the negative simply because some people just don't like those types of movies. And if you're one of those people, then yeah, definitely stay away from The Long Walk. The only other negative I could think of for me, I would say the end is going to be a little, I don't think controversial is the right word, but how about divisive? Because it ends in a certain way. Again, it's got a bit of some ambiguity to it. And then there's one part that I didn't like is they have some ADR lines by a character where I was like, okay, I didn't need that. I already knew the stakes and what was going on. But it's like, oh, in case you all forgot about what was said a half hour ago in the movie. But at any rate, the end is a little, I don't want to say it's bad. It's just going to be one of those things where you either like it or you don't. That's, there are movies like that out there, and this is one of them. So that's really the only other negative I have for it. So my overall rating or recommendation for this film is I do recommend you go watch this movie if you can handle a dark subject matter, a movie that doesn't end on some happy note where, everybody's wonderful and everything's great. Yeah, it doesn't end that way. It's a bleak, dark movie, and it's got some gore and it's gruesome in places and it's relentless, but it's also got, again, these connections with these characters and this joining this brotherhood of these young men trying to survive all of this. But yeah, I bought into it. I loved the characters and the performances. I cared when characters died. It's not one of those movies where you're just like, oh, who was that again? So yeah, I definitely recommend going to watch it in a movie theater. And I will say this falls into one of the better Stephen King adaptations, or Richard Bachman, whatever. I'm not going to argue semantics with you people. So go out and watch this movie. Support it. We need more movies like this. It's not a sequel or a fucking comic book movie. So anyway, that pretty much wraps up my review for The Long Walk. And if you're still listening, then I must have done something right. And if I did, please, again, follow, subscribe, rate, leave comments, play the contest. Get involved in the show. Let me know you're out there. Now, before I officially sign off, I know I mentioned this earlier, but our world right now is a very, very scary place. To the point where watching The Long Walk, you think, oh, this ain't so bad. At least you know where you stand in The Long Walk. Well, what you need to do or what you need to not do. This world, a lot of bad things are happening. And some bad things happened this week that I don't want to get into the political side of things. How about that? Because I don't agree with some of the views of some people, but that doesn't mean I want anybody to get shot or killed over them. And I think we all need to maybe take a step back and kind of refocus on who we are as human beings, because yeah, I'm really getting scared for not only my country, but for this world and where we're all headed with the hate and everything. Maybe we should all just sort of take a break from social media for a while. It might be a good idea. I think a lot of hate is stemming from that. But, you know, I'm going to ask you to do something to combat all of this negativity. Do it for me. Let me know if you do decide to do this. But how about we try to do something nice for somebody this week? I'm going to put a little asterisk here for legal reasons. I mean, don't put yourself in dangerous positions, okay? I don't want to get sued because some guy was like, oh, Chris told me to help somebody. I got out on the side of the road to help someone with a flat tire. They conked me over the head and stole my car, so now I'm going to sue him. Well, you're not going to get anything. Maybe you could take over my debt. So use some common sense out there, but try to help some stranger this week. You know, if it's someone at the grocery store can't reach something on the top shelf, all you tall people out there like me, grab it for them. Maybe short people could help us tall people by grabbing the stuff on the lower shelf. Or say something nice to somebody, some stranger. You know, if you're walking around, like I said, if you're in the grocery store, you're walking around, someone's got a band t-shirt on and you like that band, say, hey man, cool shirt. Or they're wearing a movie shirt that you like, try to say one of the movie quotes or something, just to make them smile. Tell someone something nice, do something nice for somebody. Let's try to be a little more positive to each other. Whatever we think or whatever we look like or whoever we sleep with in our beds, try to be nice to everybody. I know this sounds so, bleeding heart, but my God, all of this hate and anger over shit has got to stop, or else we all will be at war. And then we'll have to do the long walk after the war's over. And I don't want to do the long walk. My body isn't built for that. I got bad knees. I got a foot that's giving me issues. I'm not going to make it in the long. Do you not understand? I'm not going to make it through the long walk. If they go 300 miles, I don't know that I would get 1 mile into the log walk before I would just lay down. So please, let's go out and try to be nice to some stranger this week. Do that. And then, you know, if you got a cool story, let me know, and I'll read it off on the next episode or future episodes, because we're going to try to continue on with this. I know I don't have a billion listeners like some other podcasters out there, but, you know, my little sphere, maybe if y'all start, then we could pass it forward. I hate to bring that phrase back, but let's try to do something nice for everybody. And anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate you doing something nice by listening to my show. I tell everyone I know I got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcaster YouTuber universe. You never fail to live up to those high standards. Now, as you're traveling around on this blue and green ball bouncing through the cosmos, I need you to go out and do something else for me other than just being nice to a stranger. Go out there and do that voodoo that you do so well, because that might bring a ray of sunshine into somebody's life.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.